Hi, welcome everyone. We'll get started in just one more minute while we let folks trickle in. Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. We know we have a few more folks that are joining in, but we do have a lot of information we want to share with you today. So we'll go ahead and get started. This is being recorded, so we'll send this out to everyone afterwards as well. So welcome. My name is Crystal Reyes. I lead the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Equity here in Tulsa. And I'm so excited to be speaking with you all today as part of Welcoming Week. This is one of many events that the City of Tulsa is hosting in partnership with many partners, including our partner for today, Upward Global. Welcoming Week, for those that may be a little bit newer to the concept, is a national celebration to affirm the importance of welcoming and inclusive places and to celebrate immigrant communities and bringing people together in a spirit of unity. We have, as I mentioned, we have several events taking place this week at the City of Tulsa. Earlier this week, we had a naturalization ceremony where we welcomed 21 new citizens. Today, this training is part of our lineup, and tomorrow we have a festival, and we'll be joining our local soccer team, FC Tulsa, to celebrate Welcoming Week as well. And so I wanted to share that, Welcoming Week is an initiative of our office, the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Equity. And our office is charged with building a resilient, inclusive, equitable Tulsa. And we do that in partnership with many organizations. And it wouldn't be possible without all the partnerships that we have, nonprofits, organizations, institutions of higher education. And one such partnership of which this initiative or this training is a part of is called Flourish Tulsa. As part of our New Tulsans initiative, we launched a welcoming plan to support our immigrant and refugee communities. This program includes different efforts related to economic development, public health, education, and we received a grant from the World Education Service to create a plan to support our internationally trained immigrants here in Tulsa. So Flourish Tulsa is part of our New Tulsans initiative and is done in partnership with many organizations, which you'll learn about here today. And so without further ado, we want to jump into the meat of the discussion. I'm going to pass it on to Leticia Calvillo from the Mayor's Office of Resilience and Equity, who will share a little bit more about Flourish Tulsa.
Thank you, Crystal. Next slide, please. As Crystal mentioned, the Flourish Tulsa project is part of the New Tulsans initiative. And we launched this Flourish Tulsa last year to support internationally trained immigrants in our community to re-enter careers that more closely aligns with the skill sets they have from their countries of origin. So through community partnerships, we're developing strategies to connect immigrants with various employment opportunities. So like Crystal mentioned, we do this work through partnerships. So Flourish Tulsa, while re-entering your career can be difficult and time-consuming, the Flourish Tulsa partners are here to support internationally trained immigrants every step of the way. So for example, the YWCA offers consultations to all the internationally trained immigrants so they can draft out a career path here in the United States. We also have Green Country Workforce as one of our partners who can offer employment and paid internship opportunities for internationally trained immigrants and the population at large. Also, if learning English is something that internationally trained immigrants are interested in doing, they can enroll in ESL courses at YWCA Tulsa and Tulsa Community College. Our partner Mosaic also offers monthly meetings where internationally trained immigrants can network with other professionals in Tulsa to build their professional network. And we also, on our Flourish Tulsa website, have many resources from our community partners and national partners for employers and other resources. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned, here is the list of our Flourish Tulsa partners. You'll recognize many as working extensively with the immigrant population. Next slide, please. And just here to share a little bit more of some of the concrete outcomes that we're hoping to accomplish through the Flourish Tulsa project. Our first outcome is to support employers and workforce providers with credential assessment and help the immigrant community access resources for credential recognition. We are also hoping to develop career pathways guides for internationally educated immigrants that meet sector needs. For example, here in Tulsa, we are developing a career pathways guide for internationally trained immigrants who are interested in going into the fields of education and also mental health professions. And lastly, we hope to offer trainings for employers and workforce providers on cultural competency and also how to work with the skilled immigrant professionals in Tulsa. So with that being said, I will hand it over to Upwardly Global to begin our training.
Thank you so much, Leticia and Crystal. We want to thank the Flourish Tulsa team for inviting us here. Also want to thank World Education Services for helping make this partnership a reality through their SIP program. And thank each of you for being here. Happy Welcoming Week. We're grateful that you took the time on your Friday to join us and learn more about this topic. I'm going to briefly introduce myself and then would love for my team to hop on and introduce themselves, and then we'll dig into the content today. So I'm Emily Hackerson. I'm the director of our Jobversity initiative here at Upwardly Global, which we'll share a little bit more about momentarily, and really grateful for this group of passionate folks and excited to discuss more with you today. Mahlet, would you want to hop on?
Yes, hello. Thank you, Emily. Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here with you all. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to, embark on this wonderful welcoming week. So my name is Mahlet Mamo. I'm the National Account Manager for Jobversity, the initiative that Emily just mentioned. She's the director and I'm the manager of that initiative. And we'll talk about that in a bit. I have been with Upwardly Global for about 4 years now, and it has been an interesting and exciting journey. And yeah, I have worked as a job coach, and now I am working on this initiative. And thank you so much for having me. And I'll see you later in a bit. Bijan?
Thanks, Mahlet. Good morning, everybody. My name is Bijan Yaman Afshar. I am the employer partnership manager at Upwardly Global. I actually rejoined Upwardly Global a few weeks ago of absence. I worked at Upwardly Global for a number of years, then left and came back. So really happy to be here. And thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to be engaging with you all, and I look forward to talking about our employer partnerships work. Thank you.
Thank you, Bijan. Yeah, I'm grateful to be able to pull on really incredible colleagues from across Upwardly Global, including our employer partnerships program, which we'll speak to. So let's dive in. We wanted to start here with the goal of this session, but I think acknowledging what is really a broader North Star for the Tulsa region and for Oklahoma more broadly. And that is, I think many of you are here as well because we recognize and are invested in the need to support immigrant and refugee professionals and job seekers in Oklahoma in accessing the skills and resources they need to find meaningful employment and to be able to advance within their career there in Tulsa or Oklahoma. And so that's really the North Star. That's what's bringing us here. There are many entry points to this conversation and many things we could focus on that would help push us all towards that North Star goal. But we've decided to focus on 3 areas and really want to reiterate what an incredible resource Flourish Tulsa is. Not every community has an initiative that's so established and has so many resources available to you. So would really encourage you to take advantage of their team's work. It's impressive. And we want to be able to offer another foundation of knowledge here in 3 core topics. One is understanding really the value. Why are we talking about investing in pathways, career pathways and economic mobility for immigrants and refugees? We also want to share a little bit more in helping folks understand what the individual job seeker journey looks like for an immigrant here as they enter into a new community or one they've been in for many years, perhaps in the United States. And also covering some of the visa basics, which we know can feel daunting, lots of acronyms and random feeling numbers. So we'll cover a few of the basics around visas and work authorization. And then finally, it's rare, we feel, to have both employers and folks who are supporting job seekers in their job search in the same session. And so really glad we can have you all here as a joint audience. And Bijan will be joining and speaking to some of the practical tools for recruiting and hiring and ultimately being able to retain immigrant and refugee talent and professionals. So that's setting the groundwork for what we hope you will all walk away with today. And again, we're going to try and save time at the end for questions, but please put them into the chat so we don't lose them. And lastly, I wanted to share a little bit about Upwardly Global, our organization, and who we are and what we do in this work. So Upwardly Global, we exist to eliminate employment barriers for immigrant and refugee professionals who bring their extensive experience and perspective and training from their countries of origin, but are too often unemployed or underemployed here in the United States. And so we seek to support them in re-entering into their career fields. And we have been doing that for 20 years nationally. So we've learned a few things along the way. We've supported just under 8,000 immigrant professionals in re-entering into their career field. And that is typically accompanied by a $55,000 income lift, which we can all understand the incredible impact to the individual and their family, but also at the community level, the community economic level, when folks are able to move into thriving wage roles. So we also have over 50 employer partners that make up our really robust employer partnership arm. And we're excited to be able to draw from that expertise in this presentation as well. Okay, so digging in, investing in immigrant talent and development. Next slide, please. Thank you, Mahlet. We wanted to start by grounding us in a little bit more of the macro here with a term that's familiar to us in our world of work and likely is very familiar to many of you as well. And that is this concept of brain waste. When we say that, we're referencing the fact that we know currently right now, research tells us that there are over 2 million immigrants with college degrees or advanced training who are unemployed or stuck in jobs that are not commensurate with their skill or experience. And this skill underutilization is a phenomenon that we call brain waste, where there's just a mismatch between the role folks are playing at work and their abilities and their skills. So this skill underutilization has an obvious impact on the individual, but it also results nationally in tens of billions of dollars in foregone earnings and taxes annually. So this is a problem that hits our entire nation in an economic sense. And this is also something that impacts our local economies too. Oklahoma and the Tulsa region are also a part of this brain waste effect when we are not making the best use of the talents we have in our community. And so as we work through this presentation today, the question we should really be asking ourselves is, how well are we as a Tulsa or as a community here in Oklahoma really investing in the talent that already exists within our communities, so that we're making sure the work that they have in front of them is commensurate with their skill. But then also, how are we actively investing in making sure there are pathways for folks to advance within their careers and to really be filling those key labor market needs that are within Tulsa. And we'll get a quick snapshot of that here, if you don't mind advancing, Mahlet. So I highly encourage everyone to check out the New American Economy Map the Impact. It's an incredible resource for data, but we wanted to share some of a quick snapshot of what the immigrant workforce looks like in Oklahoma today. This is data from 2019, so we imagine it's still very accurate. So as you can see here, there are 238,000 immigrant residents in the state of Oklahoma. Almost 40% of them are here and have a high school education and some college. Almost 25% of our immigrant community in Oklahoma has an advanced degree. And now more than ever, as we're encountering the impacts of COVID-19 and looking to recover, I think it's important to highlight that 6% of nurses who are responding to this crisis are foreign-born. 6% of health aides are foreign-born. So it's helpful to start thinking, how are we ensuring that we are investing in our immigrant community members who have and are already contributing immensely to our economy, but how are we making sure that we have clear pathways for them to continue to advance and to continue to build the skills that we need as either a nation or specifically there in Tulsa or Oklahoma to move forward resiliently. So another snapshot of the Tulsa metro area. Again, almost 30% of the immigrant residents in the state of Oklahoma reside in the Tulsa metro area. So this is a really big opportunity for your community to better understand and support immigrant professionals. So I'm gonna move forward. And then lastly, before we shift into another talking about career pathways specifically, wanted to highlight again the opportunity for Tulsa as we think about this community of talent. We know that nationally about 2.4 million mid-skilled jobs are opening in major markets right now, and yet we have a hard time filling those roles, right? This is the time when we're really wanting to find and keep incredible talent. So as we think about, as you all as employers or as folks who are supporting job seekers in their journey to meaningful employment, how are we thinking about what that market demand looks like in the state of Oklahoma or for Tulsa specifically? So we've listed here some of those top growing industries and some of those top growing occupations, many of which immigrants are already vastly represented within. So how are we making sure that if we want to grow in these areas and this is what the demand is, we are creating really meaningful pathways for folks to enter into these growing industries? On that note, next slide, we're going to get a little bit into career pathways. Again, Mafet, the next slide would be great too. Thank you. I wanted to just highlight again, Flourish Tulsa has an incredible program and resources available. If folks want to dig in deeper into career pathways, we've also included some resources within this presentation, which we'll be sharing with you. But career pathways more broadly, what are they? This is the way that we communicate to new employees or existing employees what the path is, a clearly articulated path within a specific career. And that includes understanding what it takes to enter into a new work field. Also, what are the core competencies? What are the hard and soft skills needed? What's the education required? What are the options within that career field for advancement? So career pathways and career pathway programs explicitly map out how someone can be successful within a specific career or industry. Next slide, please. And right now, more than ever, we see so many employers. I'd be really curious if the folks want to throw it into the chat if you are an employer, if you have an existing career pathways program, or if you're considering one, perhaps you have an education incentive in place that operates similarly. Please share it. We want to highlight the current investment that we see from across our employer group, investing in career pathway programs for their workers, incumbent and new. And specifically, there are a lot of creative investments in career pathways programs for immigrant and refugees happening, and we're happy to follow up and share more about those. And that's because there's a clear business case for why companies want to invest in career pathways programs. One is that it allows you to better retain the amazing talent you currently have. And it also allows you to grow that talent from within so that you're creating those internal hiring pipelines that are so desirable. It also helps you differentiate from your competitors in your field. It helps businesses attract great talent. When Jobseeker is looking at company A and company B is offering a really incredible tuition match program or a career pathways opportunity that's going to offer them access to skills that will help them advance within their career or they're at work, they're going to go with company B. So, and finally, it goes without saying that turnover is costly. It's costly to companies when folks leave. And so we know through the research that one of the biggest reasons people leave is because they don't feel like there's a sense of a future for them, or they feel stuck in a role. Career pathways programs are what allow folks to see a future for themselves in organizations and meaningfully move up into that and to achieve that economic mobility that we know is so critical. Next. So we've listed a few resources here. Really, some are for workforce developers or practitioners, those supporting job seekers. Some of these are better understanding, digging into what some of those career maps look like for job seekers who are within a specific industry and looking to maybe make a lateral move, or perhaps someone wants to shift industries and reskill. There are some really great resources here. For employers, we have a national training database that can give you an idea through whole story of what some other companies are doing across the country to create training programs or career pathway programs, as well as some other educational benefits opportunities. So I'm going to pause there and pass it on to my esteemed colleague, Mahlet, who's going to walk us a bit more through the individual immigrant job seeker journey so we can better understand what some of the barriers are for our immigrant job seekers, and then also how we can best support them. So thank you, Mahlet.
Thank you, Emily. How's everybody doing? Feeling good? Hopefully. Okay, now let's talk about the immigrant and refugee professionals job seeking journey. So as you can see here, immigrant and refugee professionals bring unique values to the US workforce. These are just top selected ones that you see here. based on the 20 years data that we have collected at Upwardly Global and from years of reports, study, research conducted by organizations focusing and working with this population, the data shows that most immigrant and refugee professionals have completed bachelor's degree from their home country, or they have equivalent credentials, and 50% of them have master's degree. So this is an incredible data. So the average years of work experience for immigrant and refugee professionals is 9 years. That is a lot of years of work experience, and more than 50% of them have management experience. And it goes without saying that they bring an international work experience, obviously, and a global perspective that organizations are striving for, as we are increasingly interconnected and the world is becoming, as I say, a global village. So this is a valuable skill set and perspective that immigrant and refugee professionals bring to the table. And in most cases, organizations do not need to worry about employment or visa sponsorships, as they are fully work authorized, which allows them to work in any organization or in any position in the US. And we will discuss this topic in a little bit of detail in a bit. And once they are hired, the data shows that immigrant and refugee professionals are extremely loyal and loyal to their employers, and highly motivated and driven and dedicated to learn more, grow, and achieve their goals. They are extremely resilient and unafraid of challenges, and adaptive to new circumstances and changes. So our internal data shows that they have 90% of retention rate after 1 year of employment. As Emily mentions, as organizations are facing continuous challenges of retaining good talent, especially these days. I'm sure this is an interesting data point for hiring managers, HR people, our recruiters. So this can also be a huge cost saving strategy, as staff turnover is very costly in terms of time and resources for organizations, as Emily mentioned earlier. And you're also an organization who believes in the value of diversity. If you believe that diversity adds value to the organization, this group will present a huge opportunity. In addition to an international work experience and a global perspective, immigrant and refugee professionals are bilingual, multilingual mostly, speaking English in addition to their native languages. So those factors will bring additional value to the organization. So these are some of the top highlights that we wanted to cover in terms of understanding who immigrant and refugee job seekers are. Okay, now let's take a look at what success looks like for immigrant and refugee job seekers. So as Emily mentioned, just as Upwardly Global, we have placed more than 7,900 job seekers into their professional jobs. This shows that there is untapped talent that present a huge opportunity for organizations, and our success stories show that it is possible to address brainwaste issues in the US. For example, if we take the success story of Tedros, who actually was my job seeker when I was a job coach, even if he had more than 9 years of work experience as a data analyst and a statistician in Eritrea, when he first came to the US, the only job he could find was as a security guard. But after getting connected to the right resources and support, now he works at Wells Fargo as a business analyst. The same goes for Halim's story. She had more than 8 years of work experience in industrial engineering in Venezuela. And but when she arrived in the US, the only job she was able to get was as a cashier or similar jobs like that. but now she is a senior production planner at Tesla. So these are incredible stories of success of immigrant and refugee professionals that show implementing the right strategies and focus. It could address this brainwash challenge. And the main takeaway from the success stories is that this supporting immigrant and refugee professionals is a win-win for everybody, for the job seekers, for the immigrants and refugees struggling, for the organizations looking for talented people and struggling to fill in jobs, and for the state economy, city economy, the country in general. So it is a win-win situation. Okay, now let's talk about the different visa statuses immigrants and refugee professionals hold and its relation to work authorization. The data shows that there are more than 17,000 Oklahoma residents who fell into the refugee group. So when we say refugee group, we are saying refugees, including asylees and SIVs. And you can see the definitions there, the specific definitions on what the differences are. But the main takeaway for you on this should be this group of people have been forced to flee their countries for a variety of different reasons. And they are deeply vetted as part of the US immigration process and screening process. This population, they have undergone a lengthy immigration process. And at this juncture, if they are asylees, refugees, and SIVs, that means they do have work authorization and they do not need any type of sponsorship. So understanding that will really, when you are as a recruiter or a hiring manager or someone supporting immigrant and refugee job seekers, professionals, will let you know that they could work legally in the US. On this slide, I want to invite Danny to talk about Afghan placement and assistance program in Tulsa and what's happening right now as it relates to the Afghan response.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Malet. And we just wanted to follow up on that previous slide. And especially because we know there's lots of questions in the community right now, knowing that we anticipate having 800 or more individuals coming to Tulsa. They will be coming via the Afghanistan Placement and Assistance Program. And although their circumstances would be very similar to the slide before, and the majority of them in a normal opportunity to apply would qualify as refugees, asylees, or special immigrant visa holders, due to the urgency of the situation, these individuals are coming in via humanitarian parole. They are going through extensive security clearances, very similar to the other programs, and they will have authorization to work. So they will have to submit a work authorization, and those are being submitted currently while families are on the military basis. And then once they're resettled into all of the different communities, we anticipate they would be receiving those work permits and then be able to work. And another thing that we are expecting with this group is to see a pretty big range of education, employment, and English language skills, many of which will have training or higher level English skills upon arrival. And so we just wanted to put that out there because we know there's a lot of questions kind of about families coming and what that might look like. So we are anticipating in Tulsa at least over 800 people probably starting to arrive this month through most of them coming by November, although possibly longer. That's based on what we know currently. And I will say that every time I try to answer questions or share information about this by the afternoon or the next morning, a lot of what I've shared has changed. So keep that in mind. But the basics of the Afghanistan Placement and Assistance Program is that people are coming in via parole, will be eligible to work. And we do expect, based on backgrounds, to have a pretty broad range of education and employment skills.
Thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate that additional information. Yes, Upwardly Global also have been working with SIVs for a while now, So we kind of understand the population, and as Danny mentioned, they come with a very high level of English language skills and education because they have been working with US military and US State Department supporting that work. So yeah, we look forward to supporting this population. Yeah, continuing the discussion on the work authorization and visa types. As you can see here, we have listed different types of visas that allow immigrant and refugee professionals to work in the US legally. A lot of numbers, a lot of information, but you'll have this information to refer back to understand what specific numbers and letters correspond to. But as a rule of thumb, what we want you to take away from this is that if that visa type allows a person to work legally or not, if they have work authorization and if they can work legally here, that is the only kind of rule of thumb that you need to understand about the visa type. Not everyone with the legal status will have work authorization. As you know, for example, if they are students, international students, this everybody knows as a simple example, they are allowed to work a couple of hours, but if you want to hire them full-time, you have to sponsor them. So there is an option of sponsoring if you really want to retain that talent and you value that talent. There's also a sponsorship sponsoring an immigrant job seeker. However, people who are here legally and do have work authorization and have different types of visa types are already here and ready to work. So tapping into that talent is a much more cost efficient and effective way to proceed. So you'll have this list as a reference. Here are some resources that we have listed if you want to dig deeper into the work authorization process and what sponsorship is and who needs sponsorship and who doesn't. All those things, especially the USCIS, the US Citizenship and Immigration Services website is amazing. They have a chatbot. Her name is Emma. I ask her questions all the time. Amazing, like just entering the number of the visa type will just give you a lot of information. That is the most accurate website you can go to for that kind of information and so on. So now I'll pass it on to Bijan for the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahalet. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I'm gonna talk a little bit about recruiting, hiring, and retaining the immigrant job seekers. We'll cover a few things, a little bit about our approach and our vision, and talk a little bit about barriers that skilled immigrants and refugees, job seekers face in their job search. You've heard some of that already, and some of the barriers and challenges that employers face. And overall, some tips and just thoughts on what employers can do. So our approach is, we know that organizations need diverse talent. Upwardly Global connects employers with work authorized immigrants and refugees who, bring their rich education and skills and talent to the US from all over the world, from Fortune 500 companies to small tech startups. Hundreds and hundreds of companies in every sector are benefiting from folks like we have in our UpGo talent pool. Next slide, please. We also know that foreign-born job seekers face barriers and challenges throughout their job search. So we work with employers to address these barriers through engagement with their HR and talent acquisition teams and just interested general staff through a variety of different ways that you see listed here: thought leadership, talent pipelines, volunteer opportunities. We have a very active volunteer program that folks can join. We also hands-on experience in recruitment, retention of these folks. You know, with our 20 plus years of experience working with the immigrant and refugee professionals, has really informed the development of our unique hands-on experience that has really positioned us as leaders in the recruitment, retention, and success of foreign-born, highly skilled talent. And really, as far as partnerships, we look at partnerships as a long-term thing. You know, it's not a short term. Not only to recruit this talent, but also to retain them after 1 year, 3 years, and beyond. So that's our goal. Obviously, there's a lot of information on this slide that you see here. I'm not going to go through all of that here, but just to say that this is what you see here is the overall job seeker's journey. And the areas that I've highlighted in yellow are some of the barriers that are specifically that job seekers face, that really that employers have a big part they play in. So I just kind of wanted to highlight some of those, you know, things such as during their job search, being told to apply for entry-level positions, even though, you know, they have much more experience than having to apply for an entry-level position. Also, during their application process, the forms that they have to fill out don't include foreign institutions. The universities, for example, foreign universities, that's another barrier that they face. You know, things like bias towards accents during the interview process. As far as, you know, onboarding, once they're hired, you know, a lot of companies don't offer inclusion and diversity training during the onboarding process. And another thing for career advancement that's kind of key is offering mentorship programs for this population can be extremely helpful. So those are some of the things. Next slide, please. Again, a lot of information on this slide, but this is just to kind of give you an idea of what employers face as challenges in terms of their hiring processes. But this is all kind of just to say that you know, some of these include, you know, work authorized immigrants in the workforce planning conversations really are not usually included. And so that's one of the challenges I think that employers face, is just kind of including this population in their workforce planning conversations. Another concern that employers have are sponsorship concerns. And by that, I mean that there's a perception that these folks may require a visa sponsorship in order for them to hire them. And in fact is not true. The job seekers that we work with do not require sponsorship. They're fully work authorized. Things like skill set mapping, being able to map the skill sets from this population into what's more traditional in the US job market. So those are just some of the things. Again, lots of information here, but I just kind of wanted to highlight those. Next slide, please. So what can employers do? Here are some thoughts on a few items. So if we can go to the next one. During the recruiting process, some of the things that employers can do is, for example, making online applications more international. For example, including an option for foreign degrees and job locations that are outside the US in their drop-down menus. Really tapping into the non-traditional talent, such as local refugee resettlement agencies and organizations like Upwardly Global. And as we all know, you know, recruiting really depends on networking, and encouraging employees to volunteer with organizations like Upwardly Global, where they get to actually meet immigrants and refugees with professional backgrounds. So instead of somebody describing that to them, they'll get to see them, up close and work with them. And really, educating frontline recruiting teams. Many of the folks, as I mentioned before, have full work authorization and do not require visa sponsorship. Next slide, please. As far as screening, there are a few things, reconsidering kind of what we call red flags on a resume. One kind of obvious red flag that pops up quite a bit is gaps on a resume is often considered a negative. But with this population, it's really important to keep in mind that a newcomer's career, like the folks that we work with, have frequently experienced an unavoidable interruption. Maybe they left their home country that was going through a war, or other upheavals or other issues that forced them to leave, and it's a major transition to go through, and it takes time to kind of get back into your field. So which results in many cases in pretty long gaps in their resume. During the interview process, familiarizing the candidate with the U.S. culture and your company's hiring practices. That's another area. For example, interviewers may need to repeat or rephrase a question, especially during a phone screen when the job seeker is not seeing the interviewer, and the body language is not there. So it's more difficult for them to kind of sometimes understand. So it's kind of important to keep those in mind, and really kind of embracing the value of a kind of a low-skilled job, what we call a survival job, that many of our job seekers do before they can transition into a professional work. So let's jump to the next slide, please. In the hiring process, a few suggestions could be, contacting references that are not in the U.S., that are, outside. As you can imagine, most newly arrived immigrants don't have a lot of contacts in the U.S. So many cases, their references may be outside the U.S. So having that process in place where you can contact somebody outside the U.S. Educating HR and hiring managers on just general immigration paperwork, removing immigration status from job descriptions. And by that, I mean, in many cases, some job descriptions may list U.S. citizenship as a requirement. But if you dig into it more, a permanent residency or a green card may be sufficient for that job. So that's another one. And also involving employees that are immigrants themselves within the companies. They can play a really constructive role in both educating the company executive, and also being play a mentorship role for folks that are coming on and getting hired at these companies. Next slide, please. As far as inclusion, creating on-the-job training, things such as internship and apprenticeships can be extremely helpful. For example, gives the newly hired a opportunity to improve their English, for example, learn U.S. business culture, acclimate to their new role in a supportive short-term position. So it's really a win-win. The employers, and you'll have an option to hire them, and you'll also have, provided that valuable first U.S. job for the resume, which is extremely valuable. Signing a mentor for immigrants and refugees joining your organization. It's really tough to be new at any job, as you can imagine. So you can, if you can just imagine, having to learn a whole new language and culture as well, makes it extra difficult. And really engaging your employees by asking to hear their stories. And also, one last item here is establishing employee resource groups. Many large companies have been doing this for a number of years, And for example, establishing a what's called the ERG, employee resource groups for new Americans, for example, people who have been in the US for 5 years or less would be one idea. Okay, so last slide here. There are a bunch of resources on this slide, which these are all links that you can click on. So when you get the slide deck, you can go to them. I have gone through a lot of information in a very short amount of time, and I apologize, but please feel free to, my contact information is on the slides. Feel free to reach out with any questions you have. And thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bijan. Thank you, Mahlet. We still magically have 9 minutes, which isn't a lot of minutes, but enough. If we'd love to open it up to either our partners at Flourish Tulsa, if you have anything to add, or we can field any of your thoughts or questions in the remaining time. I know we couldn't have been that thorough, but we did throw a lot of information out there.
Hi, everyone. This is Diane again with YWCA. I realized I didn't introduce myself earlier. Since we're not seeing a lot of questions come in, I thought it might be helpful just for a quick second. I know Leticia did a great job at the front end, kind of explaining the different partners for Flourish Tulsa, but also wanted to kind of wrap around at the end and just kind of reshare a little bit about, we're really thankful for Upload coming and sharing their information. We've been working with them as part of the Flourish Tulsa project and as members in a national cohort for skilled immigrants. At YWCA, we are the partner in the refugee resettlement process to provide employment and English support for immigrants and refugees, and particularly for the refugee asylee community, really helping with placing them in their first job upon arrival in the US, and then providing ongoing support to help upskill those positions. So this was really a great training, and we really appreciate you all coming and sharing that information. We're always looking, at least at YWCA, for employer partners who are interested in supporting and hiring from the refugee community and building new partnerships, and particularly knowing that we'll have a big group of families coming from Afghanistan. We'll be even working harder to establish those employer partnerships. So for anyone on the call that hasn't worked with us in the past, we're more than happy to make connections and build relationships around how we can work together to support immigrant and refugee employees in the Tulsa community.
Thanks, Diane. I'm also realizing that we asked you all for questions and then didn't allow you the ability to unmute. So please, if you do have questions, put them in the chat. And then also, I think we're going to try and see if we can unmute everyone. Forgive us for that. But want to make sure we can follow up if anyone wants to have a further conversation. Upwardly Global is really excited to be here as a resource for you moving forward as well. And otherwise, do want to give another really big thank you to the Flourish Tulsa team and the incredible amount of care and work you put into supporting immigrants and refugees every day. And we're really grateful to be a part of this welcoming week extravaganza. I know you guys have a full docket, so thank you for inviting us to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. We unmuted everyone. We do have 5 minutes. So for those that do need to leave at noon, that's okay. And also if you want to leave a question in the chat, we're going to follow up. This recording will be sent out to everyone who is registered. And so you'll get the recording and any follow-ups. But just want to say thank you again to the Upglow, all the presenters, and the Flourish Tulsa team that's on today. And we'll go ahead and convene or adjourn. So thank you, everyone. Really appreciate everyone being on the call, and have a great welcoming week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.